Good evening and welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of Thursday, August 27, 2026. At this time, I'd like to call upon everyone so we can stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that you all remain standing in a moment of silence of our soldiers past and present, especially those soldiers that are in harm's way in the Middle East. Thank you. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded by Dartmouth Community Media, and I usually announce when our next scheduled meeting will be, but at this point, I think we're not certain as to the exact date, and our secretary is not here today,
Well, it's
unfortunately.
September 17th.
September 17th, was that the one that we had put together last time?
Yes,
All right.
yeah.
So I guess we can announce that our next scheduled meeting will be September 17th of 2026 here in this room. Moving on to the public hearings portion of tonight's meeting, it's comprehensive permit ZCMP-25-3, which was continued from August 13th. The petitioner is Mr. Philip Cordero on behalf of the Hathaway Dartmouth LLC. The property is located at 0 Hathaway Road, also known as map 57 lot 1, and it's located in the single residence A district. It's already previously been legally advertised, and we've previously waived the reading of the abutters list. And the petitioner in this case, the Hathaway Dartmouth LLC, is seeking a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law 40B, Section 20-23, the comprehensive permit guidelines, in which they're seeking to develop 300 units. That was the original application. There have been some modifications to that for the viewers at home and the people here in the audience, if you weren't here the last meeting. The development is for a property measuring approximately 113 acres to be known as the Hathaway, and it's located within the single residence A zoning district. So at this time, I'm going to call upon, actually, we don't really need to hear from the petition. I think I need to hear from my counsel as to what may have transpired since the last time we were all in session.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So since the last hearing, there hasn't been a lot of new submissions because it was mostly, I was charged with starting to work on some draft conditions for the board to consider. I worked with that. I had some communications with the applicant's counsel regarding those, as well as the draft waivers. The draft waivers were updated by the applicant since the last hearing. So those are in front of you as well. And so in connection with those updated waivers, I did have the opportunity to speak with the DPW director and the planning director so that the board could be provided with some staff/council recommendations or thoughts regarding the waivers. There was also the revised site plan that was discussed at the prior hearing that reduced the number of units, relocated the buildings on the south side a little bit to accommodate some more parking, all of that.
I haven't seen that yet.
Did Michelle not forward that to you? I think you,
Maybe
yes.
she did.
I think it's in your pile there because Mr. Human has it. That's sheet
Is that
C.
part of this packet
Sheet
here?
C103, yep.
That's it.
Yep. But it's the same thing that was presented on screen.
Well, I've seen this, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
you've seen it, it's just they've submitted it online. They submitted it into the portal. So, yeah.
But I'm talking about the bigger plan that shows A, B, and C breaking out. I haven't seen that, but.
What do you mean, breaking out? Like
was-
section?
Yeah, there was some little portion in the corner here near the roadway that was going to be.
Oh, you're talking about the A&R plan? That's in your pile as well?
Which one were you referring to?
I was referring to
Site plan.
the site plan,
Okay.
okay? The conceptual A&R plan had been submitted a month or two ago originally in a prior hearing. Also, some more detail on the proposed monument sign that they mentioned at the last hearing. That's sitting on your table in front of you. That came in. And then there was some follow-up with both peer reviewers, both traffic and civil on a couple of the conditions, and that I know, I don't know why, but it printed very small type there, but if we need to, I can tell you what those very small type emails say about a couple of the conditions. So those are the documents that have come in since the last hearing. And my suggestion to the board, is that you may want to start with the waivers,
I think that would make sense.
okay? You have one in front of you that says August 26th, revision 5 on it. Mr. Giosa went home sick today, and, but Mr. Barber is here, and so between he and I think we can walk you through and answer any questions, hopefully, that you may have. Also, the applicant is here with counsel if, as needed. So, would you like to proceed with that?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Did you say revision 5 or 45?
Well, it says 45, but the 4 is crossed out.
Oh,
It's
okay,
just-
all right. Yeah,
It's
I
track
don't- okay.
changes, you can't see the line.
We don't have 45 revisions.
When did we start this?
Okay. So I'll just go through, there are 25 requested waivers. I'll note that what you will not see on here, because the applicant has removed them based on the conversation they had with the board at the last hearing, is they have removed the request for a waiver for the billboard, and they have removed the request for a waiver of water and sewer fees related to the affordable units. So those are no longer appear on this chart. Okay, so number 1 is just a waiver to, because it's in Residence A, typically you have one dwelling unit, is to allow the 280. This is obviously revision 5, they've updated that from the 300. The next, I'll say 2, 3, 4. So these I believe they inserted them because they wanted to be, kind of err on the side of caution of making sure they were asking for waivers. But because they are having different uses, like they have a leasing office, they have an amenities, parking, et cetera, and they asked for waivers for these uses in 2, 3, and 4. However, the recommended response here is that they're not applicable because these are commercial uses that are not applicable to the project. So I did review that with the planning director, and also it's been reviewed by applicant's counsel. So that's the suggested response on
So
those.
hold on, are they going to require them to get further approval for these?
No, because these are commercial uses. They are not proposing commercial uses. They're only proposing, it's with the other.
Incidental to
Oh,
the,
but
to the
Yeah,
use.
They're incidental to
Yeah,
the residential use.
they're incidental and they're accessory uses, they're accessory residential uses. They're not commercial uses. They're not going to be open to the public. Like their swimming pool is not open to the public to come use, so it's not a public facility, it's still a private residential facility.
The conference room.
Yeah, and the other 40Bs that the board has approved have been treated the same way. That waivers were not
I
required.
figure we're
And it-
granting a waiver of that as well.
Yeah, and in addition, 2 of these uses, 3 and 4, are special permit requirements, and under Chapter 40B, they're not required to request waivers from special permit requirements, so,
So you'll take them out, is that what?
well, no, I think
Let's say
we'll leave them in, but so that it's for the record, so if there's ever a question in the future, someone says, hey, why didn't you get a waiver for this, it can be in here that the board acknowledged that it wasn't necessary. Okay. All right, so now, you'll see, there's little shading that I put in here just to kind of help, group these together. So the next group of waivers is specifically for single residence A requirements. Again, this is, not more than one dwelling on a lot, so that would need to be waived. The second one has to do with setbacks of the parking facilities, and fences, stoning, retaining walls, those types of things. There is a condition that's proposed, which we'll talk about later, about kind of requiring, the plans be updated to reflect the retaining walls, other types of things. So subject to this condition, which the board will review subsequently, the staff recommendation was okay on this. I mean, the further condition on the waiver is just that if the retaining wall is going to be close to the public way, that it not what's the word I'm looking for? Encroach on the public way, either above ground or in the underpinnings. They have to just make sure it's entirely on the parcel. So that's number 6. Number 7 is the height. And for the buildings as modified as proposed at the last meeting, so the 3 buildings will have 1 less story. The recommendation on this is tying the peak height to what was presented in the August 13th presentation. That's this presentation that the applicant made. I have my copy with me here, and it does indicate peak heights, et cetera. So that is the recommendation there. Number 8 is the reduction in the number of parking spaces. Well, the reduction and the increase, right? It's a reduction in number of parking spaces but it's increasing it to the 1.52 spaces per unit. So this is a waiver consistent with the presentation as well of that new sheet C103. All right. The next one has to do with the size of the dimensions to allow for 9 by 18. The zoning bylaws requires 10 by 20 in residential, but doesn't require, like in the site plan review, there's different criteria in the bylaw. So this one is specifically for Residence A to allow the 9 by 18. I think the board's discussed the size of the parking spaces at previous hearings.
We recommended actually to go 9 by 18.
Yeah. So, okay. So number 10, again, this is a Residence District A waiver. The lighting for the project is proposed at 25 feet mounting height. That complies with the site plan review criteria, but not with the Residence A criteria. So it's just a waiver under Residence A, but not under site plan review. Again, there's some disconnect between the sections of the bylaw, and this just makes them consistent. The next one, now we're in the specific site plan review requirements, which is subsection 24 of the zoning bylaw. This had requested a waiver from a special permit to decrease the amount of required parking spaces. A waiver is not required from special permit requirements pursuant to the 40B regulations. So this has been noted as they don't need this waiver, as we discussed with the uses board before, because anything that requires a special permit, the 40B regulations are explicit that no waiver is required. Okay. Now we're on off-street parking requirements. You'll see some redlining in there. There were some changes that myself and the staff had called out of updating that needed to be done in their request, so they've made that change, as you'll see highlighted. It was referencing a section. It was referencing evergreen buffer, which is not part of these 2 sections of the zoning bylaw. So it didn't make sense to reference it in this waiver, so that's why that's deleted. These are setbacks of the parking facilities from the street. The requirement is 40 feet. They requested a 20-foot setback from the street, and also, again, to allow 9 by 18 spaces to be 10 feet from the buildings, as opposed to the 10 by 20 spaces. So that's those two are in number 12.
When the final result, the yellow that you have.
That
in
won't show up in the
That's gonna
final.
come
Yeah,
out.
that's going to come out. Any of these notes, anything that shows notes or redlining, whatever, those won't appear in the
Okay,
clean version.
that's what I thought.
Yeah. This is just so that, the board can kind of, I can kind of walk the board through what's happening. In number 13, again, this is another waiver to allow 9-foot stall widths where 10 feet is required. So the bylaw's a little bit redundant on some of these provisions, so just covering them in each instance. All right, so number 14, and this is one of those the email from Steve Finland at Howard Stein Hudson, which I know is a little, I don't know why it printed and with such tiny looking font. But he raised a concern about the need to have traffic or speed calming, traffic calming, more traffic calming design in the sites. So there had been inserted into the conditions, and we'll talk about the condition later, that they add more, and that's a generic one that may need to be further refined. We may need to further refine the condition, but at the same time, the applicant had asked for a waiver on these. Now, I don't know if there's anything that the applicant would like to speak to, but on the email from, and I just got to find it because I've got a pile here, from Steve Finland. Sorry, it's in this pile somewhere.
I'm sorry, was there any discussion on this with the peer review, with the engineer? I
Yeah,
mean-
so that's Steve
Okay.
Finland. So this is the very tiny email that's hard to
Oh,
read.
okay, all right, yeah,
So, what Steve is saying here, and I should brought my glasses, is the perimeter roadways, specifically the two that are perpendicular, so that's the east-west internal roadways, are of a concern. It's showing that the grade change from Hathaway to the back of the site is a 20 to 25-foot elevation change, and he's concerned about the speed of people coming in and maybe moving a little bit too fast down those east-west towards the back of the site. So, what they had requested here is this provision of the site plan review talks about design techniques to reduce vehicular speeds and gives examples such as speed tables or curving roads. Those aren't necessarily the only possible techniques that can be used. Their waiver request said speed tables are provided only in the cross aisles, not north-south. And I don't think that that's the concern. It sounds like it's the east-west that's the concern from the peer reviewer. There is a condition. I think that, but again, I have to ask this is not, the recommendation is not to waive this in its entirety, but to refer back to the proposed condition, which will be discussed when you get in the conditions. But I don't know if the applicant wants to speak to this at all, or we can talk about it during the conditions, whatever you prefer. Okay, we can keep going. Yeah, well, we can just talk about it at the same time, unless we'll just hold on that one for a second. In 15, it talks about sidewalks along the frontage. As I know, there's no sidewalks on Hathaway, so this one's, this waiver is appropriate because it's not applicable. And the same is true for number 16. All right. I'm just going to keep going unless the board stops me. So the next section you'll see, and this is at the top, I have the page numbers for reference. So this is page 6 of 9. This was just the reason why there's a number sign there. These are going to have to get renumbered to incorporate this. This was just recently added. The site plan review requires 4 inches of mulch. The applicant's requesting 3 inches of mulch. This is a waiver the board has granted before, so the staff was not concerned with it.
How do we control that?
Who's taking the ruler out there? But the plans do reference 3 inches of mulch on the landscape plans. Okay, number 17, so, number 17 and number 18 are redundant. I'm gonna ask the applicant's counsel if I may. Since number 18 is going to cover B 1, 2, 3, and 4, is it okay to delete number 17? Then the one above it can become number 17 and we don't end up with a whole renumbering. Is that okay? Yeah. Is that, all right, okay. So this number 17 is gonna go out. The one above that doesn't have a number is gonna become 17. Okay. So now we're in 18. I added these highlighted notes, just these cheat sheets, just to help, rather so we don't have to be flipping through the zoning bylaw. So this is section 24.4B, 1 through 4. And there was a waiver as no internal landscape islands are provided. That is true. The landscaped islands are if they're in kind of the middle of a parking lot, but this provision also relates to other landscaped islands. And I have a plan set here. I think because Michelle had to leave, unexpectedly today, we didn't have a chance for the board, but I do have the landscape plan here if anyone on the board would like to look at it. Oh, you know what? You can actually look at it on that C. Do you have that C-103? That actually is, it's not the landscape plan, but at least it shows you where the islands are. And so, with respect to B1, that is landscape islands that there aren't going to be any of them. So that one, and number 5 also relates to landscaped islands. So 1 and 5, the recommendation is okay. On number 2, there are islands at the ends of each of the rows, as you can see. Now, you don't see them, you're not going to see them on C-103. On the landscape plan, these end caps, these end islands, do show a tree on each of them. The bylaw also says a tree and 10 shrubs or something like that, trees and shrubs. So the requested waiver is to just have trees there and not add shrubs. I don't know if that's anything the board has a concern of, if you're okay with that, with a tree on, so that would be a waiver. That would be okay, read the shrubs. Okay. All right, the next one is B3 and 4. So this 3 and 4 are related because it requires a island every 10 spaces, and then 4 gives the dimensions for these islands. And again, you don't see the plantings because this is not the landscape plan, but those areas in between where there's parking spaces, then you see handicap spaces, and there's islands in between. All of those are shown as landscaped, okay? But it's not one every 10 spaces, and I think that's in order to try to have the maximum number of parking spaces as the board requested. But I just wanted to note the request there. And
What do you think of that, Helene?
Yeah, it's fine.
okay, all right.
I can't really see it here.
No, well, they're not shown there. They're on.
Okay, I see them.
If
They're plotted out, but they're not designated as landscaped areas.
No, it's an
No,
island,
well, 'cause
because
that's-
it's not a landscape.
the landscape plan, which I can pass this down, and this, of course, is going to be modified because of the new parking layout, et cetera. But you can see, if you want to pass it down.
Oh, you can't
If-
see it on the
Yeah, because that's not a
103.
landscape plan.
Oh, okay. That's definitely not one every 10.
No, but normally if it's 1 every 10, I think the width is 7 or 8 feet or 10 feet. So now if you take that landscape island is large, it's probably like 4 parking spaces, so.
They're
so if
doubling
you-
it up in
Well,
just a
or
circle.
triple or 4, yeah.
I get it.
but
Okay.
I think it's probably easier for plowing or something, I can't remember.
Okay. Those are okay. All right, now we're on number 19. I might ask Mr. Barber if he could come forward on number 19. So number 19 is a requirement, a site plan review, that a certain number of trees be planted between the property line and the paved street. So these are new street trees that would be planted in the town's right-of-way, kind of in the shoulder area. The waiver, so based on the frontage, 18 street trees would be required. They're requesting not more than 7, if appropriate, for the site as determined by the revised landscape plan. Currently, the landscape plan actually doesn't show any trees to be planted as street trees. They're doing a lot of plantings inside their property line, along this line, which I can pass this down again if you'd like to see it. There is, and you'll see when we get to the conditions, so it's a little hard doing them kind of separate from each other, but it's easier than going back and forth. There are conditions relating to updating the landscape plan because a number of updates are needed, particularly with the reconfiguration. This question of allowing, so what's proposed in the conditions is that there will be an revised, updated landscape plan, and that they're going to work with the zoning bylaw to the extent they can, but are seeking some waivers in advance, such as this one. And they're also asking in particular here that they not be required to do any of the street trees if it's not like appropriate for that site, for kind of the shoulder there. And I don't know, I'll let Mr. Barber speak about the shoulder.
Good evening, Tim Barber, Director of Public Works. So I know the requirement requires street trees planted every 30 feet, which was estimated at about approximately 18 trees. The waiver is requested to allow for 7 trees. I haven't seen anything submitted, any drawings to review to see what that's going to look like. It may be less than 18, but it may possibly be much more than 7. And until we get a chance to review the site with the proposal, I think it needs to be clarified. We also want to work with the developer and make sure that it is functional and aesthetic. We wouldn't want to, do anything that didn't work for the site in the shoulder area. So we're willing to work with the number of trees. We just would need a proposal to review and probably meet at the site as well. I think, a property survey line would be good to have at that point, to see where the right-of-way property line is versus the paved roadway.
So am I to understand this correctly, they're proposing to put in 7 trees, and based on our town requirements, that length of area would have required 18 trees in accordance with our bylaws?
Yes.
All right. How do you think about the number of 7 in relation to, and I know you haven't seen it yet, you haven't seen any plans, just on taking a rough analysis of it, of what you know the property to be?
I think 7 might be a little low, but 18 might be a little high. So I think, looking at the site, and once it's surveyed and meeting at the site and showing some
It's also
proposals on a
dependent
plan.
size too, right? But I'm sure
Correct.
that there are
Yeah.
requirements for size that limit, at the very least, the smallest that they could be.
Yes. Yeah, typically the caliber is a 2.5-inch diameter.
Eileen, what are you thinking?
I'm not sure. Did I hear that the 18 trees is based on a 30-foot spacing?
I believe it was 30 feet.
That's probably like 30 feet, that's excessive, I think, right? 30 feet, every 30 feet, a large tree? Those are shade trees?
They are.
Yeah.
think-
So if they do probably like double that, it'd be 9 trees at 60 feet more or less, or 50, something like that.
Yeah. A lot of times we see 50 feet as well.
Yeah, that's more reasonable, I
Yeah.
think.
And I think, establishing a tree canopy in that area for environmental,
Right.
also traffic calming along the roadway would go a long way.
All right, I just wanted to get a sense of how far apart we might be on this, that's all. I'm not here to be fighting really about trees, but
No, but
they're
I think
necessary, right? They're
50,
part of what we need
They
to
are.
enforce.
10?
Yeah, we'll address that. I don't want to belabor it either. We can move on.
9 or 10 is fine. We'll make them fit.
Yeah, that would be like double the spacing that they require.
The
which
goal
is-
is just not to have something be discretionary later, that people won't.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it.
Yeah, when we get to the conditions about the landscape planning, then there'll be more context around this as well. All right, 9, I need a number, 9 or 10? He said 9 or 10.
But 10, it's fine.
You said 10, you knew they were going to ask for 10.
10 gives you that 50-foot spacing, which is more in line, but,
Okay,
I rely on your opinion, because I don't really know until it's built.
I mean,
I'll say
30,
it's
if
too
it's a
tight,
big
or
tree,
it's
I
too-
mean, if 30 foot, you get the.
Well, you gotta think about its future growth too, right? If you feel comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with it.
Every 50 feet, that's reasonable.
okay, so the next one, number 20, has to do with the number of trees that are within the parking facility. Based on the parking the size of the parking facility, 52 trees would be required, they're proposing 30. Also, that number might actually change, it may be a little less than 52, because the parking is changed, like, that number might not even be accurate, because the parking configurations changed based on that new layout plan. So, what the suggestion here is, and again, I know I'm talking to you a little bit in a vacuum because you haven't seen the condition yet, would be to tie this again to the submittal and review of the new landscape plan, which would happen would be reviewed by the planning director. So I just have to propose and prepare for you for when you deliberate, how to word that waiver.
And
But-
we got 40 days, right, in order to do that?
Yeah, I think that the plan would be to do it on the 17th, would have.
Of
this-
September.
Of September.
Okay.
So, but conceptually, for the board, I mean, they're seeking a reduction in the number of overall trees, and just, if the board can provide some feedback on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. I mean, they have a reduction in that landscape island anyway, so that goes along with the trees too.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And
And this is-
obviously, I want more trees, right? But the thing is you don't want them to be to a
Where
point
do
where
you
they
wanna
look
put-
clustered and
they
they don't
can
look
only put the trees on
appropriate.
the island.
That's
If
right.
you don't
And
have
it's not
islands,
gonna
where
look
you gonna put the
appropriate.
trees?
And at this point, we're only talking about trees related to the parking area. There's other condition, all the conditions related to parking to landscaping, are going to talk in more detail about the landscaping along the northerly and the southerly boundaries, so we haven't had that conversation yet. Right now, we're just talking about the parking lot.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, we're almost done. 21 is, so this is foundation plantings around the buildings. And, the planning director has said, and it's been the same in the other 40Bs that the board has approved, that trying to put a tree next to a foundation is not necessarily, putting the shrubs, et cetera, is appropriate. So this is a waiver to not require trees, but they would have other plantings around the foundations. And so this was recommended by staff to okay this waiver. Almost there. All right. Number 22, this requires that, this section of the bylaw requires that there be enough shading of approximately 30% of the parking spaces, have some sort of shading or tree canopy. Originally, but again, the plans just changed, they were proposing 18%. At this point, they would like to, and again, we have to talk about that landscaping plan condition, but they'd like to propose it to be based on whatever the final approved landscaping plan will be. I guess the only question is, does the board want to set at least a minimum for this purpose? Or if you want to just, they'll work with the town staff to kind of come up with a plan, a planting plan that works.
I mean, if they were at 18% before and they reduced the coverage on the parking, they're probably close to 20% now, I would assume, or something, so, but that, they can work it out with the planning, yeah.
Okay, so waiver's okay based on the final landscaping plan?
Landscape, yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 23, you can ignore that highlighting. They did fix, there was a typo there, but they fixed it in the section reference, so that's been fixed. This has to do with signs. And so you did just, there was a slide that showed it kind of briefly, but there was submitted, there you go. That is the proposed monument sign. I think we could see, at the time that this suggestion or recommendation was drafted, we hadn't seen that yet. So that's why the height is blank. And the only other thing is you just want to make sure you don't have a sign blocking any sight distances. Presumably, they'll set it back far enough that it won't happen, but that would just be a condition of the waiver.
Where is this sign on the site? I don't.
It's on the front, the entrance is on the front left of the site, right? On the southerly side, and it's to the right of the entrance. Nope, that's it's on the far left.
Oh, okay, I see, it. It's a
Right,
curve, yeah,
right.
the
I see
curve,
it,
one. I see it, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, as long as there's no issue with sight distance or
Yeah.
anything, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Looks good.
Okay. All right. All right, number 24. Now, these are the rules and regs that the zoning board adopted in 2025 to govern comprehensive permits. So those regulations require that the existing condition plan show every single tree. Obviously, this is 110 plus acres, right? And at this point, the development is proposed on the front portion.
What a condition.
They are, so, they're saying that it's not practical, right? To show that level of detail,
I think that's fair.
right? So what was proposed was to show in the individual trees along the boundary with Eisenhower Street, and that was going to be, the recommendation is to show what's to remain on that plan, to show what's to remain and what the ones that are gonna get removed. They're asking that it only show those that are intended to remain. Now, the issue, we're just talking about the existing condition plan. This is gonna come up again when we're talking about the new landscape plan, because the proposed condition is you need to show what's there, what's coming down, what's staying, and what's getting added on the new landscape plan. So I guess for existing conditions purposes, this may be okay, but we're gonna have another conversation different about the landscape plan. Does that make sense?
I think because the buffer was so crucial and for the neighbors, and I think it makes sense to identify those trees that are to remain, you know,
Yeah,
like the
okay.
large trees.
Yeah,
I think so.
okay, all right. And, you know, like I said, there'll be more landscaping discussion in a few minutes. The next one is just the scale of the plans, because of the size of the site, that the scale of the plans, they're not all 1 inch to 1 inch equals 40 feet. But, for example, this one is, so I think that it's just, it will depend on the area being shown. All right, and then,
That's it.
that's page 99. So does the board have any questions regarding any of those items that we went over?
Any questions, Sean? All right,
All right, would you like to move on to the conditions?
absolutely.
So you should have in front of you a document that says draft conditions 8/26/2026 at the top of it. Okay. So I'm not gonna read every single one of these conditions.
No.
Some of them, I'm gonna get more to the site-specific one. But, and I'm also, so just for context, and I did put notes for the board at the top. There are some track changes in here. The track changes are changes that the applicant is requesting that I wanted to just go over with the board. There's also some conditions that have been added. Now, after the applicant kind of sent me comments on the first draft. So they've now seen them, but they haven't formally commented on them. So that's why they're shaded gray, and I'll call those out specifically. And then you're gonna see there's some conditions that are actually like in purple font. I'm calling them out because these are mitigation related or provisions that the applicant has specifically asked for. So, hopefully the colors are there. It's in color, yes, I see.
We're only gonna go over the shaded and colored ones, right?
Well, and some track changes.
Okay.
So, and then I'll otherwise summarize the other ones, okay? So what I want is, generally, I'm not talking about the general conditions because these are the same for every 40B, but we got some track changes on them. So, and I did mention this to Attorney Donahue, and I think we still need to talk through how to do it. The language in here, right, that it has to be constructed in accordance with the approved plan. So these are the project plans, this is what they've submitted. The approved plans are defined as the final plans after they've revised them to meet all the conditions, okay? So those will be the approved plans. So it says that it has to be built in substantial conformity with the approved plans, and that there's not gonna be other things happening, including changes in building typology, that kind, right? And so the word, and you'll see it here and a few other places, that Attorney Donahue's inserted the word material. So, but building typology this is, right, whatever, 3, 4, 5-story multifamily building. And I'll ask his counsel also, my understanding of building typology is like, oh no, if we were gonna switch this to duplexes or single family, or like, as long as it's all still multifamily building. So what makes me, as counsel to the board, uncomfortable with the word material is who gets to define what's material. So I think that that's just a recipe for things landing back on you or in front of you. And so I think that.
I think the thought process behind it is any change could then require them to have to come back before
Right.
us.
Right. I mean, I guess what it's gonna end up is they're gonna submit plans updated plans or proposed final plans to, you know, it's gonna go to the planning director, maybe DPW director, some may have to be peer reviewed. I think the answer is gonna be, if they believe that, it's gonna have to be their determination. If they think it's material, they're gonna reject them, they're gonna end up back here with the board. So if the board's comfortable with material here, then we'll leave it.
Well, there's usually a legal standard. I know that I deal with it in court, and it's a substantial and material change.
Yeah.
So it's two parts. And
Yeah.
that's what would require you to come forward and make a change to an agreement, because there's a substantial and material change in some fact. I don't have a problem with material.
Okay, so we'll leave material here. All right. Then we get over to the bottom of page 2 in condition 10. So this talks about any outstanding peer review fees being within 30 days of issuing this. They've asked to not have to pay those until expiration of all appeal periods and all those other, the concern I have with this is peer review fees that have already been incurred. So for example, Ms. Keller and Mr. Finland have done a little bit of work, not a ton, but a little bit of work in the last 2 weeks to tell them, oh, we can't pay you for 2 years because they have an appeal going on, I don't think is
I
reasonable.
don't feel comfortable with that.
Nor do
We've
I.
already incurred it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Incurred it as a result of their request. So,
So I think that most of the bills have already been submitted. The only additional work that's happened is that the civil engineer and the traffic engineer were just asked to look, which they didn't spend a lot of time. I think they, an hour or two at the most each, looking at the new C-103 and just saying, does that alter our conditions at all? You saw their letters that they issued for that. And then they were each asked about potential changes to some of the draft conditions.
I think we can let that go, provided that their bills that have been approved as of when we get our permit. So if you issue your permit, just for talking purposes, today, if bills come forward after today, they wouldn't be the ZBA peer reviews anymore, so it would be a new account.
No, if they did work after today.
We wouldn't be liable for it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it's work done as of today, or, right, or as of when they vote, right? So, right, so if there's another question, like, we'll talk about traffic calming, if in the back and forth, Steve Finland's asked to weigh in, like, hey, do you think this traffic calming works, before they vote, then that's all part of the pre-permit review. We're not anticipating really any more work, and they've done very little since the last bills were paid.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, so we're going to strike this. All right. Okay. Now we can keep going. So again, this section A, general conditions, are really just they're in every comprehensive permit the board's issued, and they're really just, as it says, general conditions about they have to record the permit, they have to comply with the permit, et cetera, those types of provisions. The next one is a set of regulatory conditions. The applicant didn't have any comment, well, there's one at the very end on page 5, but these are the ones talking about complying with the affordability aspects of the project. So that's what section B covers. And then when you get to number 18, which is on page 5, I guess I need some clarification on number 18, because it says the town, through the building commissioner, shall have jurisdiction over the conditions and approved project plans. The building commissioner is not a designated party to review the final plans. It's the planning director, DPW director as appropriate, or the peer reviewers. So I think that would create an inconsistency in the document to say that the building commissioner is approving the plans. I think it's going to be other staff designated in this permit.
You'd like to strike building commissioner.
I'd like to strike the insert. So the building commissioner is going to have jurisdiction for compliance. The approval of the final plans or the review of the final plans for consistency is going to be done by others, not by the building commissioner.
I think that was initially inserted to address the material issue.
Oh, okay. But I think it's covered by the
I
other.
agree that it's kind of conflicting now.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be covered by the fact that there's other designees already for plan compliance review, that it covers it. I don't think you're being exposed by taking this out. Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh, shoot. Because I put this green highlighting, I can't read the writing. All right. Great. All right. So on page 6, you can see it on my screen, but you can't see it when you print it. On page 6, top of page 6, hold on a second. This is post-approval submissions and review. So this is exactly what we were talking about, who's going to be reviewing it. And so it says the revised plan shall be reviewed for consistency and applicable as ultimately determined by the planning director. The thing here is the planning director is going to be, it may be the planning director, but if it's the sewer plans on the on-site sewer, it's going to be the DPW director. So I think, though, that if you look at the beginning of that sentence, it says, which shall, unless otherwise provided, shall be the planning director, and as deemed necessary, the planning director, other qualified staff such as DPW, conservation agent, or peer review. So I think that, again, I think this is already covered in the language, and we don't need to, the planning director is not going to look to say whether or not the on-site sewer pipes meet the sewer construction specifications, right? Okay, thank you. All right, this language in gray, so I just want to touch on that briefly. I did mention it to Attorney Donahue, and I think Attorney Eckel, you may have been on that call as well. But this came in after a draft that they originally saw. There are some notes, particularly on the landscape plans, but again, they're going to be updated, that aren't consistent with the conditions. And I just don't want to create a situation as to, well, the plan says X and you approve the plans, but then there's a condition that says something a little different. So I did insert this language that said if there's a conflict between the notes and the conditions are going to govern. I did mention it to Attorney Donahue. I know he hadn't actually read it yet. I don't know whether there's any further comment on here.
I think we're okay. It makes
Okay.
sense to clarify.
Okay, thanks. And now I apologize because I'm a little frustrated with myself right now because my draft has green highlighting, which has blue underneath it. It's 30 days, that's what it is. Okay, I reviewed this with Mr. Barber earlier, that's why I made it green to say, so I could tell you I had reviewed it with staff. Once it goes, if any of this has to go to peer review, they're requesting that it be done within 30 days. And the peer review funds will have to been put in place prior to that 30 days running, and Mr. Barber felt the 30 days was okay. So I'm gonna, unless supported. Okay. Number 4 is where we get the material again. In the event the revised project plan show any material changes that are inconsistent with the permit or the order of conditions, requires material modifications, then they have to come back to the board, right, for that determination, whether it's substantial or insubstantial change. Again, the question becomes, who's deciding whether or not it's material?
The enforcement individual, if it's DPW, if it's
Yeah,
if it's
so
going to be the
I
planning
think that's
director.
ultimately what it's going to end up being. So I don't know if you're comfortable with material again
Fine with
here.
material in there as well.
Okay.
But that's just me. There's another attorney on the board, and we have an
I'm fine
engineer.
with material as well.
Okay, great. All right, so now we are in section D. Section D talks about the updates they need to make to the project-specific plans and what they have to incorporate. So really, it starts on the top of page 7. In particular, if you look at section 3, Most of these in section 3 have to do with updating the plans to reflect the presentation they did two weeks ago, okay? Some of these after talking to staff, and after I had gotten that initial draft up, kind of came up because the planning director was on vacation last week and I hadn't been able to talk to him before the first draft went out. There is proposed A&R lots. They are not shown on the plan. So for example, if you look at C103, the site plan that you have, in the bottom left corner, the southerly corner near the church, there's a little triangle that's gonna be carved, there you go. There's a little triangle that's gonna be carved out, and the applicant had discussed this at a previous meeting or two, that the church already parks, portion of their parking lot kind of encroaches, and they'd been given a temporary parking license by the existing owner. And so the intent of the applicant is to carve off that little triangle and give it, and deed it to the church. So, but that's not shown there. So I had the question that I ran by your civil peer reviewer, hey, if they carve out this triangle, will it affect the new parking layout or anything? She took a quick look at it, kind of overlaid it, said, no, you're all clear, Steve Finland agreed. So this is just though to make sure that any proposed A&R lot boundaries are put on the final project plans so that it's clear. I mean, the one for the church in particular affects kind of that entrance area. So that's what E is. The table that's on the bottom right of that plan, or it's somewhere on there, the land use table, that talks about lot coverage and that type of thing, is based on 110 acres. They have said that they may submit an A&R plan that would carve off approximately 16 acres just for this project. But then that now changes, for example, the lot coverage calculation. So if they're going to do an A&R plan and carve this off from the rest of the land, they're gonna need to update those. So that's just a requirement that they do that. The snow storage, I was told today by Attorney Donahue, there was an old note on the plan that carried over, talking about using parking space areas for snow storage. But apparently that referred back to when they were gonna have banked parking, which they're not. So there's a requirement you can't put snow on the 425 required parking spaces. And then just requesting a little more detail regarding the monument sign. They did submit some today, but it's not showing like the setbacks. There's not enough detail about the setback from the street, et cetera, for the site distance issues and that kind of thing. So that's what 3 is. The others, the retaining walls have to be, where appropriate, have to be by a structural engineer, kind of spot grades for accessibility, and now we get to 6. So 6 is landscaping. This is the one that I wanted to discuss in more detail with the board. The landscape plans need to be updated for a number of reasons. One of them has to be because of the reconfiguration that we talked about on this new C103 that you have in front of you. The other reason was some of the other sheets, for example, L502 had charts on it. The charts were inconsistent with each other. They're inconsistent with the waivers list. There was just, you know what, as things evolved, there was just like going back and catching all these things and updating it. It just got missed. So, and then there was discussion about the northerly and the southerly property lines. So we can talk about those in more detail in a second. But conceptually, what is proposed, and that's in 6A, is they're going to submit a fully updated landscape sheet. All of these landscape sheets are going to be fully updated. And they're going to contain, hopefully, all, except to the extent you've granted waivers that we talked about earlier tonight, it's going to comply to the greatest extent possible with the zoning bylaw requirements. Now, there may be instances where, okay, instead of like we were talking about. Is it 9 trees? Is it 10 trees? Maybe it's 8 trees, right? Where they're going to work with the planning director, in this case, if it has to do with street trees, Mr. Barber would be involved, and come up with a plan, walk through with the staff, you know, what do we need to do to comply? Okay, we can comply with all this, but we may not comply here or there. That is the idea, is for them to work cooperatively with the staff, come up with this landscaping plan. Once it's to the point, hopefully, where the staff is comfortable with it, and if it needed additional waivers, then it would come back to the board for a blessing. There's also the possibility that what they think they're proposing is reasonable and the staff says it's not, and it may have to come in back for a determination if it's a substantial or insubstantial change. So, but hopefully, they're going to just work cooperatively, collaboratively with the staff, come up with a nice landscaping plan, and if it does need any additional waivers, it should be an insubstantial change, and the staff would make a recommendation to the board. So we'll talk about the 2 boundaries in a minute, but conceptually, is the board comfortable with that?
I don't like it, but given the time constraints we're gonna be faced with at this point,
I mean, you gotta close the hearing tonight, so they can't,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
We
so
got
they-
40 days for them to basically hash all that out, and.
no, so they're not gonna do that this would all happen post-permit.
Yeah.
This would all happen post-permit, because nothing can be submitted after tonight.
Then it's gonna be on them to come before us to make the determination, like you said, substantial or
Yeah,
insubstantial.
either it'll fully comply with the bylaw and the waivers that you've granted,
Or,
and if it doesn't, then they'll have to come to you and the staff will make a recommendation as to, and then, you'll do it. So it doesn't seem like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like the most reasonable way to do it because it has them working with the staff as opposed to just revising it and sticking it in front of you. They're going to work with the staff first and hopefully when it gets to you, if it needs to come to you, there's a
I'm
consensus.
fine with that.
if it's gotta come before us, it's gotta come before us. What do you
Yeah, I
think,
mean-
Alvin? What do you
I'm
think?
fine with that as well.
Okay, so that's the concept. So that's A. So then we talk about B. B is Eisenhower Street, so boundary. So this is where we talk about, there were questions because the original landscape plan was a little bit unclear. It kind of shows conceptual, and there's even notes on there on the plans. Oh, well, the locations of the trees are all conceptual. We'll decide when we get there where we're going to stick them, all that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit too vague, thank you, that's a good word. And so I talked to Attorney Donahue about this. I think this is probably the longest conversation we had because landscaping is so important to the board. And there are bylaw provisions about having sufficient shading. So what B proposes is that the revised landscape plan to be submitted in accordance with A, which we just discussed, will indicate the limit of work between the roadway work that they're doing there and the boundary, right? So that's our boundary buffer area, right? And that they're gonna show the existing trees, which ones are staying, which ones are coming down, and what's gonna get added there. There had been discussion at the meetings, because right now their planting table just includes kind of standard arborvitaes. There had been mention of these green giants that maybe grow faster, et cetera. So there's a reference like such as green giant, like to place trees that when combined with the existing vegetation will provide reasonable screening. And that the revised plans will have to include the species and the height of the proposed trees. And so this was language that I discussed with Attorney Donahue, and again, it allows the staff here to work with the applicant, talk about the species, and try to say what, and, you know, maybe even go out on the site and say, where's the spots that maybe can get filled in and be the most beneficial, et cetera. So that's kind of proposed. Again, you know, it means the parties working, I mean, the town and the applicant working together in the future, but it seemed to be the best way to have a reasonable outcome. And I don't know if the applicant wants to add anything, or if I summarized it fairly. Is that fair? I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to provide a buffer from the neighbors, whatever. I mean, we understand things are gonna change in construction, especially after they do the grading. I'm not sure, I think there's a retaining wall there, and the grade's maybe 10 feet lower than that side. So if they lose a tree and they think they can replace it, they can do that, you know.
Right,
and-
so-
And stuff, you know, even on the plans, you can say, you know, I mean, put the tree here, it might change because of the grade or because there's a structure or something, you know, so.
Right.
But if they're working with the staff, the goal is to provide that buffer for the neighbors, you know. Keep the existing buffer as, to the extent practical, whatever we can, and then add whatever they show on the landscape.
On the final landscape.
And try to keep it that way, you know?
I mean, that's why we just wanted to,
Yeah, I mean,
Talk it
there's
through out
no-
loud and
yeah,
see-
but
I mean,
They
you
know
know.
what the concerns are, I mean, you know, they know with the neighbors and the buffer, I mean, that's mainly what we need to provide, we need to provide a good buffer, or maintain a buffer if we can, to the extent practical, you know?
Well, there's definitely gonna be a buffer.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying like, definitely they're not cutting the trees on other properties, but if it's so close and they can save a tree and within a couple of feet of a wall or grade change or something, you know, they'll probably do that.
Wasn't there also an offer on the table that they were gonna supply up to and?
yeah, so we'll get to that.
It's in here.
It's in there, we'll get there. This is just revisions to the plan set, so that goes under a different category of conditions. The C has to do with the boundary along the church on the southerly side. That plan that you had, and even the original landscape plan really didn't show anything there, but again, they had originally showed it at bank spaces, now it's gonna be fully built out. So there was language that was proposed by Attorney Donahue, and I tweaked it a little bit just to tie it back again to 6A, and it would be similar that, you know, to the extent, there's gonna be all that parking over there now, but to the extent some landscaping, because the bylaw does require some boundary plantings, and they weren't really adding anything there, so that's gonna get worked out as part of this overall landscape plan. There is, you'll just see and see clarity, there is, because the initial applications for the application as submitted to the board was for the entire land, and they do have a boundary with the state highway in the back, they did ask for a clarification in here that, obviously these plantings and all these things don't apply to the interstate, and so that's, I think that was without saying, but we put it in there for clarity at their request. So the rest of these D, E, and F are just, one's a fire department requirement. The next is, like I said, that chart is gonna get removed off that plan, so we don't have conflicts with the waiver list. And then we just need, snow storage to be also shown on the landscape plan. That's what they asked for, so. Finally, utilities may need to be updated, the photometric plan, particularly with some shifting around. The buildings becoming shorter, the other buildings shifting a little bit, just needs to be updated. All right, where are we? We're on page 9. Stormwater, these conditions came from your civil peer review, Deb Keller. There was a question that came up on C. I think Attorney Donahue was unclear what that was. We did get it, and it is in your packet, but again, it's in this It's in this tiny font that's very hard to read, I don't know why. But basically, a clarification from Deb Keller that there's a disconnect between the plan, the grading or the storm, I don't know which plan, grading and drainage plan, and what was written in the written stormwater report. So this was to say that the plan needs to match what's in the report. This is going to stay in, it's not gonna get deleted, but it's gonna be clarified, just so that it's referencing what note she was talking to here. All right, the rest of these conditions are kind of standard you've done before. They have to do SWIP, and then they're gonna provide kind of the updated architectural plans based on the presentation they made a couple of weeks ago. All right, we're going to page 10. So now we're on the traffic calming measures. On page 10, top of page 10. So the language that is in here is the language I took directly from Steve Finland, which just said that there should be traffic calming along the interior parking aisles. As you saw, they wanted a waiver because they're saying the ones that are going north-south really don't need it. Sure. It should only be, I think based on Steve's response, which we talked about earlier, that some form of this should stay in. However, it should be clear that it's referring to the east-west as opposed to, his concern in particular was now that you have kind of a double barrel on the parking on the southerly side, you're gonna have, and because that was gonna be bank parking originally, you're gonna have people crossing that drive aisle to get to those parking spaces on the church side, and if people are kind of barreling downhill, it could be dangerous. So that was his concern. So, I mean, I think I'll look at this before the board meets on the deliberation, and probably talk to Attorney Donahue again and talk about how to address Steve's concern about the downhill there. 5.4, the reason why I left the track changes in there is just because I wanted to discuss it with Mr. Barber. This is on crosswalks and ADA compliance. He was comfortable with the wording of it. So the recommendation is to accept those changes. The next one, 5, but it will be 6, is just coordinating, confirming that the bus stop area works for the town. All right, sewer is section F. All the plans will get submitted, DPW director using the Dartmouth sewer plan requirements. So what number 2 is, and this is the one that is in color, this is, as the applicant stated at the hearing 2 weeks ago, they are willing to replace the sewer main pursuant to the analysis that had been previously done by Stantec in September of 2024. The change, the reason, so this is the language that has been reviewed by Mr. Barber. They did make this change about the timing of submitting the plans. After reviewing that with him today, he was comfortable with that. So that is their condition to replace the sewer main. Page 11, this is the water infrastructure. The applicant didn't have any comments on this. It was basically, some of them are the conditions. Condition due came from the Fire District 3 Fire Chief, just talking about fire flow information, keeping hydrants clear of obstructions. And number 3 is additional information and plan revisions that were recommended by Stantec. And the applicant didn't have any comments on those. All right. Section 5 just refers to the fact that they're going to use a well for irrigation. And so this condition just refers to, there is, you know what? It says except waived in Schedule B, and
Can we go back to page 10 for a second?
Sure.
Paragraph 2. There's not a specific time frame as to when that's going to be done. Unless it says it's.
No, it says it later. So this is plan revisions.
Okay.
And then later, there's the construction requirements.
All right, thank you.
I know, like, sometimes I struggle between, should I put it all together? But I just think, particularly for anyone doing enforcement, like the building commissioner, if he can go to one section and say, this is everything they have to do before they start work, this is everything before a building permit. It's
Understand.
just, rather than sprinkle it through, I like to consolidate them.
Okay.
I do think that there's an oversight, and so I think it should get raised now before we close the hearing. The top of page 12, it talks about waivers related to the Board of Health well regulations. So they're doing an irrigation well. This is similar to Sherbrooke. There's a couple of provisions in the Board of Health well regulations where that treat the irrigation wells as if they're potable wells. And there was a waiver for that except for testing. There's a testing requirement. And so I don't know, did the applicant intend to include those same waivers? You did, okay. So I just wanted to get it on the record. They were similar waivers. They still will require testing of the well to make sure they're not contaminated. But it won't otherwise treat the irrigation well as a potable well. Does that make sense? It's the same one for Sherbrooke. Okay, let me just make a note back on the, sorry. I'm gonna forget if I don't write it down.
Was that a listed waiver? I don't remember that.
No, so the thing is, once they added in the irrigation well, which just came up at the last hearing, it was intended, when I spoke to Attorney Donahue, it was intended, but I think within all the back and forth, it was forgotten. So add Board of Health waivers. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're in H. H is all purple, as you will see. So this is the A&R plan. You have that conceptual A&R plan in front of you. It's called a conceptual A&R plan. It would divide the parcel into 3 lots. Lot A would be the development parcel. I think you all should have a copy.
Oh, maybe I do.
It's got to be in one of those
This thing right
piles.
here, right?
Yes, that's it.
I do have it.
You got it? Okay. Yes. Oh, this is, was there a different? Yeah. Is that the same?
Yeah, this is the same, it's just easier to read.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Lot A is approximately, I think, 16.7 acres would be the development parcel. Lot B is everything in the back, and Lot C is a little sliver for the church. Attorney Donahue had prepared language for this. I took his language, but then I revised it before I sent it to the board. And he subsequently sent me revisions a couple of days ago, which are reflected here, which I have not, you'll see, I didn't accept because the board for the discuss. There was some more discussion about it yesterday, but nothing was submitted, like, as far as a markup, so it's up to the applicant if they want to bring it up. So, under Chapter 40B, even though A&R plans, just like subdivision plans, et cetera, usually go to the planning board, when it's a 40B, it gives all the authorities with the zoning board. I've worked on other 40Bs where the board will endorse an A&R plan. So this gives the applicant that they may come, if they choose, and submit an A&R plan to the board. And, there was this conceptual plan, which is in the record, which you have before you. So Lot A is this plan. The caveat, it's substantially the same as Attorney Donahue requested it, but I did add that it has to make, any Lot A, if they tweak it at all in the future, 16.17, I'm sorry, I said 16.7, would have to make sure it included all of the development areas, so you gotta make sure all the drainage is on the site, all the snow storage, you don't want it getting chopped off, and then you've got easements going on, whatever. That would be Lot A. Lot C, I'm going to jump over B for a second. Lot C is for the church, as we talked about. The original language I was provided basically said, Lot C is not part of this comprehensive permit, but it is. The 110 acres, as you read in the legal notice, is all of the land that was applied, was submitted for the comprehensive permit. So the way I've revised Lot C is that upon their delivering a copy of a recorded deed to the town, evidencing that they've conveyed that sliver to the church, then Lot C would be deemed released from this permit. Okay?
Okay.
So, Lot B, the language was that it is the intention of, this is the original language that I was given, that it's the intention of the applicant to donate some or all of Lot B to a conservation group, nonprofit organization, or government entity for open space purposes. And that none of Lot B is part of the comprehensive permit, but it is. The entire 110 acres is part of the comprehensive permit. So I revised it, as you see in purple, but they've crossed some of it out with the track changes, to say, in no event can any of Lot B developed in any manner except by modification of the permit in accordance with the 40B regulations, right? Ignore the track changes for now. And similarly, that they would have to submit a deed to the town evidencing that it was conveyed and to that entity for that purpose, that's solely for open space purposes, and that then Lot B or any portion thereof would be released from the comprehensive permit, because once it's conveyed and restricted for open space purposes, okay? This language that came back was, it could be modified by the 40B regulation, modified pursuant to the 40B regulations, or otherwise as allowed under the zoning bylaw. But it's not. I mean, it's subject to the comprehensive permit. All 110 acres was submitted in this application. They didn't submit 16.17 acres, they submitted 110.
Actually, it's 113.
Or, well, I think once it got surveyed, it may have come out to some smaller amount, I don't know, not exactly 113, whatever it is. But maybe it said 110 in the deed and it's 113 when they measured, I don't know, there's a margin of error going on there, okay? A surveying calculation, whatever that amount is. So, you know, this is up to the board. The board can allow them to A&R this parcel any way you want. You can allow them to not have it be subject to the 40B permit. I mean, the board has the authority under Chapter 40B to make all of these decisions. I drafted it the way I believe the board intended it to be, but the applicant would like it to read differently, and that is why this is before you, and I don't know, you could ask me questions, you can allow the applicant to speak, I don't know how you want to handle it, Mr. Chair.
Well, it's always been my understanding, based on the representations of Mr. Calhoun, that this was part of the entire project, because he's always told us it's 110 or 113,000 acres, and that he was only putting 300 units on the 110. I always thought it was collective, but I'm not quite understanding the nuance. They want us to actually parcel it off and not have it, they want us to acknowledge that Lot B is a separate parcel and not under the 40B, or under the requirements of the comprehensive permit.
That's what they've requested.
But why? I don't-
Well, I would disagree with normal practice, given the number of 40Bs that I represented towns on, but
Well, we'll give an opportunity to be heard on that. I just always have concerns, because then, if it's not part of the comprehensive permit, then they don't have to come before us if they want to make any changes to that, correct? I thought we were going to put a restriction on this anyway, that it was all going to be open space, conservation, open space.
the other 40Bs that the board has approved, going back to the Preserve, Sherbrooke, Hawthorne, all say the lot shall not be further subdivided. They all have that condition.
Without coming back to us.
Well, they all just say they shall not be further subdivided, so if they want to, they would have to come back to you.
Okay.
So it is standard practice in Dartmouth to not allow it as it is in other community that I have represented on multiple 40Bs.
All right, well, at this point, let's hear from him.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, is there any other comments you guys have on this?
No.
Back on June 10th, we submitted this plan to the board, and I believe I brought it up early in the process, because we did start the outreach, and it was to open space people back in January. And our commitment was that we were going to donate substantially that parcel to an open space group. We are not going to donate the whole thing initially, but we are committed, we're willing to commit of the 88 acres that is out there, that we potentially, that we would commit tonight to lock in 80 of it for open space. There is 8, which we want to reserve. It's developable land. We still have to go to conservation. Conservation could have requests that require us to replicate wetlands or something else. So we do have some uplands. There are potentially 4 or 5 Form A lots, which from the very beginning have been before the mass housing. It was in the original appraisal. It was shown on the original plan. It was shown on the conceptual plan to you guys back in January. So it shouldn't be a surprise, but for us to take 8 acres of buildable land in the middle of a housing crisis and turn it into open space that can never be used,
It's never been what?
could never be used. If we go by,
No, that's not true. You could still come back before us.
we could zip, but why come back before you in a process when the 40B process is already intended to streamline permitting? I mean, we'd be back before the notice provision. There's 8 acres, which we don't know what we're going to do with it yet till we finish with conservation. But those 8 acres,
What about all these density requirements and the percentages they provided us? Did
If-
it exclude these 8 acres that they're
Well,
trying to preserve?
so here's the thing. They provided a conceptual site plan in June, and it shows A, B, and C. It doesn't show A, B, C, and D.
I don't
It
care
doesn't
about
show
that.
8.
I'm not worried about that.
Right.
It's about what the intent is after. Now I can see what's going on.
But the thing is, we have the recordings of every hearing. And it's, as you said, how many hearings have there been? And it's always been, it's going to open space. There's never been a conversation about, and we're reserving 8 acres and we're going to see if we can develop them. So first of all, that has never been stated to this board before tonight, and on the night it's supposed to close. The second thing is, this entire parcel was submitted under Chapter 40B to this board, 300 units, now to 80, on this land, the entire assessor's lot number, this parcel. If any more housing is being built on this, that is a major modification. It's a different building typology, it's more units, it would have to comply with affordability, they would have to show they had actual rights to use that roadway, which has never been accepted by the town and has never been built. It's a paper street. There's so many issues with this that to suggest that, the board could do it, but the board has the right to require them to go through the 40B process and comply with the major modification requirements of Chapter 40B, or even potentially file a whole new 40B application to develop any more units on this land outside of what they have already proposed. So it's up to the board.
All right, gentlemen, is there something else you'd like to add, Mr. Calhoun?
yeah, the land in question Whether or not it can be developed is something that will be determined in the future. It can't be, we're willing to put a restriction that can't be developed in any other format other than the existing zoning, which is single-family homes. I mean, our whole plan is that, why would we take, potentially 4 house lots and throw them away?
Well,
That's
but,
what-
but hold on. I understand what you're looking to do. Now I get it. But when I looked at this project for approval during this entire time, it was that there were, and we had difficulty with 300 units, and we're thinking at 280 units that this would basically have impact on the entire tract, not minus 8 acres so that you could preserve it for some future development for something else. That would be the only development that would happen on lots A, B, and C. That's how I perceived it. That's how I perceived it till just moments ago.
Okay. Well, it was in the project eligibility letter, it was in the appraisal, it was presented to you guys in January, the
Leon,
form.
I'm
We're
only
not
one person,
looking-
so
we're
let's
not look-
start with Attorney Human. What are your thoughts?
I have to say that this is the first time I've heard hold back 8 acres for developing potentially 4 house lots. That, I've never seen that. You're telling me this is on plans that you submitted to the
Not to the zoning board.
zoning board?
No, not to any plans that came to the zoning board.
Well, actually, that's still not been presented, even at this very moment.
It's not part of the 40B
That's-
application. That's why we're carving the land
Oh,
off.
it's all right here in gray,
Where's
totally
that
not
area?
called out. It's north of Eisenhower. So Eisenhower, so you know how Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Dean are kind of 3 in a row, kind of those 3 fingers?
How do you access it? That's
No,
Indian
so,
Rock.
well, Indian Rock doesn't actually exist,
okay.
except on paper. But to suggest that that was presented to the board is very disingenuous. It was never pointed to with a pointer at any hearing.
access it through Eisenhower
All right,
Street.
hold on.
We're not asking for the board to do anything other than to allow us to subdivide the lots. That's all we're asking. We're not creating 4 house lots. We're just taking the 88 acres, and we're taking that and subdividing that off as a as an A&R under the 40B permit, which has been presented numerous times. We're just as we're doing the church piece. And if the board feels that they want to write in the condition that that the 88 acres cannot be, you can write in whatever you want,
Right.
and then we can deal with it. If you deny it, we can deal with it. We're being, it's literally sinful to throw away 4 house lots in this day and age.
So,
Why in the world would you throw away 4 house lots? You could make a demand, excuse me, let me finish. You could make a demand, you could come back and say, we'd like to see you donate them to Tunnels to Towers, and see 4 veteran homes go in there.
We have to balance, hold on, excuse me. We have to balance this out. And we're balancing the impact that this has on the people on Eisenhower Street. And all we've been looking at this point, because of the fact that, at least I was under the understanding that this lot, the 88 acres, would be in perpetuity conservation land, in essence rendering it unbuildable, we were limiting any impact just to the south of their property. Now, you're basically asking us to leave a window open so that you can further potentially impact the people on Eisenhower Street to the west of their property, in that general neighborhood. We're talking Eisenhower and Kennedy Street. That's not something I considered in weighing the analysis that we need to do as board members for a 40B.
If you want to write a condition that says that we have to make the 88 acres 100% conservation land or open space, whatever, it's your condition. We just have the right to challenge it, and we're just saying openly.
And the-
Why in the world would you throw away 4 house potential? It may not even be house lots.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So a couple of things. The condition, as I originally drafted it, said that it says they have the intention to convey some or a portion of all of that Lot B. And so the way I wrote it is, that's fine. If they do that, then that portion that they convey, that's restricted perpetuity for open space, can be released from the permit. Nothing else gets released from the permit until the board knows what's happening to it. So it's not, it has to, all 88 acres has to be. That's not how it was worded in the draft you have. But it is worded that there will be no more development or subdivision without coming back to this board, which is what 40B says. It has definitions of substantial modification. And I will note, yes, right now under let's presume it may or may not even be possible to build on the paper street, but let's presume for a second that it is, or they are able to make it buildable. We're talking about potentially 4 40,000 square foot house lots today under the Dartmouth zoning bylaw. There is a ballot question pending on the November ballot
Even think of that.
that would allow, if you have water and sewer, which this area does, 5,000 square foot lots. So you're not talking about 4 40,000 square foot lots. You're talking about potentially 10 single-family home lots. That's the first thing, or more. I didn't do the math, right? There's that. Then you combine it with a bill pending at the legislature right now, which, if it passes, would mandate that every town has to allow 2 families or duplexes on every single family lot. So now you take, say it's 10 lots, not 4, on 5,000 square feet with duplexes and an ADU. So you're potentially having 3 dwelling units on every single one, depending on what the legislature does and what the ballot question does. So we're not talking about 4 40,000 square foot houses, lots with 1 house. We don't know what that is, and I think the whole point of the Chapter 40B major modification provisions of the regulations is that the board gets to evaluate at the time that these requests come in what those impacts are going to be and whether they're going to be substantial or not. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was right. I know the board had some awareness of the ballot question and what's going on at the legislature, but we're not potentially, depending on what happens, you may not just be talking about 4 single-family homes. You could be talking about 3 or 4 times that, a number of dwelling units by law.
I'm not even thinking 1.
Right.
I'm not
I'm
even
just
think-
saying
I'm not thinking
what they're
any more
proposing.
development beyond 280 units on this entire tract of land. That's what I thought I was gonna be approving. That's just me, gentlemen.
No, and I agree with you, Mr. Attorney Maderas, that I like this language. I think this language is the way it should be.
The original language? The
Yeah.
original language.
That, I mean, the presentation they made to us was the entire parcel was part of the 40B package. And if they then deed it out, then it can be released.
They should have excluded it right at the inception, and then we could have asked why.
Correct.
Right. If the application had come in with 20 acres, with a conceptual A&R plan showing 20 acres and nothing with the rest of it, and that was the application, but that wasn't the application. The application was 110 acres. The 110 acres are now subject to this application and the decision that is issued from it, except as otherwise allowed by the board.
What about all the calculations I indicated earlier? The density calculations based on the square footage? That was all done on the 110 or 113 acres, was it not? It didn't exclude out these 8 acres.
I don't know.
I mean, you can look at their own C-103. They're doing the calculations for lot coverage based on the full
Fair
amount.
enough. All right, that's enough for me. Can we move on to the next one?
Leave the language as is.
We're gonna leave the language the way it is, the way it was proposed, the way I thought it should be.
Yeah.
Excuse me? We
No,
didn't close
so
the
there's
public
no,
hearing.
yeah, but, okay, I mean, it's up to you if you want to have any public comment, but if you have one public comment, you have to.
No,
allow-
I don't want to open it up at this point.
Okay, all right,
You're okay with C lot for the church, correct?
yes,
Okay. But it's gonna go the same process as B lot. Okay.
Okay. Where are we? So none of their track changes will be incorporated in the next draft that I present to the board at this time. All right, number 2 on page 13. This has to do with the stone wall. I understand it may be a very, not very good shaped stone wall, maybe piles of rocks at this point, but it was a stone wall at some point. Some of these materials are, or may be, in the right-of-way. Mr. Barber's here if you have any questions for him. But at this point, any of that material that's in the right-of-way is the town's materials. And it can't be disposed of, reused, done anything with the applicant, they don't own it. So this is gonna go in, it's gonna be clarified, but anything that's not on their property is the property of the town, and the DPW director would like the ability to have a say in how it gets utilized. Is that fair, Mr. Barber?
Thank you. So, any work that's proposed within the public right-of-way, requires permitting through the Department of Public Works, and this includes any stone wall removal, tree removal, anything, any work. So we would, visit the site, look at plans, and permit as necessary. Again, I would ask that we see a property survey out on the site once we meet out there on the site and make the determination, and we'll work with you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because this was a question that I got from Attorney Donahue, and I did ask Mr. Barber about it today, is obviously areas where the entrance drives need to go will need to be cleared, but to the extent that there's stone wall, something in there, and if there's things in the right-of-way that need to be relocated, Mr. Barber just wants them flagged in the field ahead of time. Is that fair?
Fair.
Yeah, is that correct? Yeah. So 2's going to go back in. I may be able to clarify it better. I'll discuss it with Mr. Barber and the applicant, but that one's going to go back in. All right. The remainder of this page 13 are just kind of standard conditions that have to do with dig safe, et cetera. So nothing really to discuss there. 14 is a similar, on page 8, page 14, number 8, is a similar concern that Mr. Barber had, where the applicant is just asking for permission to pretty much clear that entire area in the right-of-way along their frontage. And Mr. Barber, again, as he just stated, is asking that it just be all kind of survey flagged in the field. There be a on-site meeting before there's any clearing done in the right-of-way. So those changes, I may be able to revise and clarify it better, but the changes are of concern. Is that fair, Mr. Barber?
Yes, at this point, I don't know what there are for trees within the public right-of-way there. So we comply with Chapter 87, MGL Chapter 87, with street tree removal or public shade tree removal. So, I would like to see any trees that are planned to be removed. We can walk the site again once the site's surveyed and make a plan for that. There is a process through Mass, MGL Chapter 87, that any live public shade tree removal would be required to have a hearing with the Board of Public Works or the Select Board. So
It's a state
Yeah.
statute.
yeah,
It's Chapter 87 of Mass General Laws. It's not a local bylaw.
correct.
Okay. Number 10, so let's get to one there's some agreement on here. This language has to do with the $30,000 contribution to a dedicated account for traffic safety enhancements based on the table that was prepared by the traffic engineers as to different markings and different other upgrades that can be done on the town roads, the town-controlled roads. This is language that was reviewed by Mr. Barber, also by Attorney Donahue, and I understand is acceptable to all. That's number 10. Number 11 is the provision, Mr. Chair, that you asked about earlier about the direct abutters, up to $5,000 to each of the direct abutters. The parameters around this, so this was kind of, I discussed with Attorney Donahue. As you know, he did state at the hearing, the last hearing, that, and again, typically this is something that's done directly with abutters and applicants outside of the permit process or the permit. But, they're in agreement to language going in here, but they are setting the terms of it. And their term is that it's not that they have the right to deny this fund to any abutters who participate in any way in appeal of this project. So that is their condition on being willing to do it. There is a time frame within 24 months of them getting their first building permit. But it's also noted that this is a matter between the direct abutters and the applicants, and they need to coordinate directly. The board does not negotiate these agreements between the parties. That's the proposed language, subject to the board's review and okay.
Hold on. Is it to all of the abutters if one were to object or file an appeal, or is it just to the particular one that would have filed the appeal?
It says, if any such abutter or other party alleging standing participates in or contributes to an appeal. So if one party appeals, but everyone's donating to the cost of appealing it, then anyone who's donating towards it would also not have the benefit of it.
Okay.
That's the terms on which they're willing to do the $5,000 per property.
What do you guys think?
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't. If it goes to appeal, there's more problems than the 5,000.
Okay.
Hold on one second. It says, such requests for contribution must be made in writing by a direct abutter to the applicant within 24 months of issuance of a building permit. All right, it's 24 months.
So it gives them
2
2 years
years.
from when they go vertical.
It's just that sometimes you get a building permit and nothing happens on the ground and people don't know, but if it's 24 months. All right.
Okay. The Section I, construction inspection conditions, again, are standard kind of on all the comprehensive permits the board has issued. Though I do want to discuss the Section 5, though. So on page 15. So the board and the other 3 40B permits, and I don't know because I haven't worked with you on any special permits or with the planning board, if this is the same across all permits. But it had a restriction to deliveries of construction materials and equipments to Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. There is the ability to work on the site on Saturdays from 8 to 4. And so the request was, if they can be working from 8 to 4 on a Saturday, can they have deliveries on Saturdays? The only thing I'd say is that if the board was amenable to that, it should be the same hours of work as on Saturday, the 8 to 4, not the 7 to 6. That could be modified, but I don't know what the board's feelings are about allowing deliveries on Saturdays.
I'm okay with Saturday, 8 to 4.
Okay, Section 7 below that, allowed, and this is also standard, allowed, it's basically a model unit type of provision. So even though they don't have C of Os, so no one could live in the units, there has been allowed for a single unit to be made, prettied up for potential tenants to come look at. Right, they are asking each type of dwelling unit. So they're gonna have studio, one bedroom,
Yeah.
et cetera. You're okay?
I'm okay.
Okay. The rest, again, so just so to pull this one, I think this is important just to note, condition 9 on page 16 is no construction worker vehicles or construction equipment can be parked in any public or private way, unless they're doing, for example, if they're doing work in Hathaway, then they'll have construction equipment in Hathaway, but including without limitation Eisenhower Street. So there's a specific prohibition on any of the construction vehicles, construction workers, anyone being on Eisenhower Street. The rest is all, erosion control, stockpiling, et cetera. Conditions for occupancy are section J, O&M, C of Os, et cetera. On the top of page 17, there's a condition, as I said, has been in the other permits, that only allows the trash trucks to come in daylight hours between 7 and 5 PM on weekdays, and they've asked to strike that. So these are trash trucks coming in and emptying the dumpsters. And the board has imposed this condition on these hours in all of your other permits. The question, I don't know, in the summer, if
It's
it's
just-
light out
it's-
at 4 AM, do you want a trash truck emptying a full-blown dumpster at 4 AM kind of thing? So that's the question.
Well, I wouldn't want it. I even think the tenants that would live on this building wouldn't want it themselves. So, let's put it, 7 to 5, or 8 to 5.
Put it back, do you want to put it
Well,
back?
it is
Like,
7 to
the language that's crossed out was the language that I drafted that was in your
I want it
other.
back in.
You want it back in?
This is consistent with the other
Yeah, it's in,
projects.
it's in all the other 340Bs.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so,
Just a quick question. When does the town collect? When can they go out and start collecting?
does the town do trash collection?
Not
Oh.
before 7.
We start at 7 AM, Monday through Thursday.
That's what I thought.
Monday through Friday, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fair.
Okay. All right, number 4, so this is to your question of when is the sewer main getting replaced? The proposed language that I discussed with Mr. Barber was the first C of O. And I don't know what a building which is a party of the project means, but anyway. They had asked for the 4th building. And Mr. Barber, this may be another for you for question, get your steps in here. The issue is about, the reason why the pipe needs to be replaced is because it's an 8-inch old clay pipe, and there's a capacity issue. So the question is, Mr. Barber, on timing as to when it's replaced.
Correct.
Why does it matter?
So it matters on the number of connections to the sewer system that are, and the number of occupancies, and which includes the amount of flow that flows into the system, which could impact that section of the sewer system.
Right, so it's possible that the capacity might be to such a point before you get to building 4, that the pipe should be replaced before building 4? Is that the issue?
It could, and it wasn't studied as far as each building. It was studied as the whole development So we would have to look at the numbers and figure out where that trigger would be to decide on a definite building number.
So the suggestion here is, for the applicant, the suggestion here is that it be kept at the first, but there be a caveat unless otherwise approved by the DPW director after review of the capacity impact. So if you're at building 1, building 2, and it's not going to impact the pipe, you don't have to do it right away, but if there's going to be an impact, it might have to. Oh, okay. All right. So we'll go back to the first with the caveat that it could be delayed. Okay. All right. The next one is don't go anywhere, Tim. The next one is the North Dartmouth Pump Station donation of $40,000. So basically, the language was agreed to by applicant's counsel. The question was a bit about timing, right? So it was originally proposed that it be kind of an earlier situation, the earlier of when the town is going to solicit bids for the construction or when the applicant asks for a certificate of occupancy. The applicant didn't really have a concern with that, except that they do want to know that if they donate the money, it's not going to sit there for, 10 years and nothing ever gets done with the pump station. So they want to put like a 24-month window on use of the funds. So I talked to Mr. Barber about it today, and if it's okay with the board, I could continue to, just because it's not going to involve the submission of any new materials. It's just going to be discussion of the logistics. We can talk to Mr. Barber and the applicant, because it may be like, well, we can push back the date for contribution. So it would be the earlier of when they award it, so we know there's a contractor kind of ready and set to go on it. Or the last building potentially, like, so the earlier of they've gone out to bid, or they're getting a CFO for the last building. And then what was the number of months? They had proposed 24. What were you requesting?
I requested at least 36.
36. So push back when the donation would be made and then add another 12 months. So that's what Mr. Barber's asking, if those two things.
Well, let me just, as a side note, Mr. Barber, why are we not being more proactive in some of these improvements, right? We have wells that we not utilizing, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am a little bit. Why are we not utilizing the wells on Old Westport Road? Those things have been down for a long time. We're buying water from New Bedford. These infrastructure improvements have been necessary for a while. We've got people, not just them, we've forced others to make these contributions, and I don't know where the money goes.
It's money.
But we've got to spend it at some point.
Well, I'm just saying that, so they're proposing to submit a contribution of $40,000. The project was estimated just under $300,000 a couple years ago, so it's probably north of that. So we would need the funding approved and appropriated at town meeting to be able to move forward with that project. So
We've had
that,
other contributions for these improvements as well. Not for the North Station. This is the first contribution for the North Station.
correct.
There's other projects that are going to be contributing. So Sherbrooke will be making contribution. There's another non-40B
Yeah,
project.
but they're making it to another pump station,
No,
right?
that, it hasn't been
That
determined
hasn't been determined yet.
which pump station it's going to go towards. And then there's some non-40B projects that are supposed to be making contribution. There's also the opportunity that Mr. Barber and I discussed, that the town is doing a whole round of grants for infrastructure improvements that will assist in the production of housing. So there's an opportunity for the town to potentially get a grant too. And so Mr. Barber's looking at those grant opportunities.
Well, we need it.
We do. As far as the wells, I believe you're talking about the Pinelli wells?
Not sure which ones they are. You know, the fact that we have a well,
Yeah.
and we're not utilizing any well that's not being utilized, unless it's contaminated, there's no reason why we shouldn't have
Yeah,
it.
so the wells you're speaking of were contaminated during a storm back in 2020, and DEP required us to install a four-log system that got completed in April, and the wells were back on in April.
They are back on?
Correct.
All right, good. So why are we still buying water from New Bedford?
there's a lot of peak use. We have other wells that are under either construction. We had damage at our F wells during the blizzard. We're still waiting for a transformer to be delivered. It was expected in August, so we have a couple days left. We're looking at the shipping, and hopefully we can get that installed within the next 3 weeks or so. So
The blizzard was in February.
order a transformer that size. But back in when we had the Violetta well construction, we had a number of VFDs, variable frequency drives, and transformers that were estimated at 18 months lead time. So
Holy mackerel.
It is what it is.
it is.
I just want to ask the applicant if I can. So the suggestion or request from Mr. Barber is to push back the time frame for the donation in A and B of Section 5. So it would be after they've awarded the bid, so you would know that there was a contractor, or before the C of O for your last building. But then he's requesting 36 months to use the funds after it's donated.
We'll do it. Looks like
Okay.
things are,
All
will
right.
take a while to lead time.
All right,
But
thank
I
you.
almost want to hold their feet to the fire, to be honest with you. I'd like to say you only have, I'd like to say 2 months so you can fix this thing.
So we would love to get it done in a month, but lead times and contracts and, procurement and funding all take time.
Sounds like a lot of red tape to me. Anyway,
All right, we're
Contracts.
yeah, I know.
there. Okay, so we're on the page 17. It's the timing for installing the landscaping. It's what's called the Traffic Demand Management Program, in which they're required to kind of work with their tenants and provide packs of tenants on traffic management. Then we get into K, which is the post-construction and ongoing conditions. So this is after it's been constructed. It requires them to maintain the 1.52 parking spaces per unit, not put snow or use them for any other purpose. Have some, notify the tenants, post it in conspicuous areas like the amenity areas that they can't park on Hathaway Road or on residential streets such as Eisenhower. And then they're responsible for all the on-site maintenance. That's what condition 4 and all those subsections are. When you get to section L on waivers, what the language they've inserted is basically a plan waiver. And as paragraph 2 says, no plan waivers are granted. So I don't recommend the language, but I didn't reject any of their changes. I didn't reject any of their changes without running them by the board. So anything you see in track changes, it's things they asked for. I did not unilaterally reject them. I'm putting them before the board. But they're asking for a plan waiver in section 1 of L.
Are you wait? oh,
I'm waiting
are
for you,
wanting a
I'm waiting
response
for
from
the
me?
three of you to give me a response.
I'm sorry, I wasn't even listening
'Cause it's-
probably for the last 30 seconds to a minute. I apologize. I was just kind of reflecting back on everything we've covered tonight.
Okay, let me restate. Section L of the conditions, it governs waivers. And it states that they have to comply with all laws except as specifically waived in Schedule B, which is that chart we went through. Section 2 says there's no plan or blanket waivers. That's also something that's in the guidelines for comprehensive permits that's been issued by the subsidizing agency, that boards should not issue blanket waivers. So, but their change to Section 1 is in effect a request for a plan waiver. And so I'm asking the board whether you accept that language or not.
Help me out here. The language, or as otherwise reflected in the final plans?
Yeah, but didn't
So they're
we,
basically saying, if it's shown on a plan, the final plans that they submit for review by the staff and the peer review, if it's on that plan, regardless if you've waived it in Schedule B, it's deemed waived.
I thought you said that what we were going to put for language was that not the plan would be controlling, but the conditions would be
Yes.
controlling.
Yeah.
So let's adhere back to that.
Okay. All right, and that's it. I just have to Schedule A is the list of project plan, the project plans is defined. These are the principal operative, I'd say, most important documents that were submitted on which the conditions are based and the board reviewed. I just need to make sure they're complete. And then Schedule B would be the waivers that we already discussed. Is there anything related to the conditions or the waivers that we haven't covered tonight that the board wished to cover?
So we're going to get another version of this with the proposed changes that we've discussed. And we'll have this to
With the
cross-reference against, so that
With the
we can see.
waivers attached, with the waiver list attached.
With this version, so we could cross-reference to
Yeah, I'll
see
give you a
what-
red line.
A red line, okay. Because I'm not going to remember everything that we discussed, other than by reviewing this.
I give you a red line.
Good.
Is there anything else that the board wanted to cover for the conditions or waivers?
Gentlemen, Attorney Human,
No, no, no. I'm good.
nothing with you, Mr. Schuba?
No,
Present it. It's Roderick, sorry. Mr. Roderick. All right. Is there anything else you think we need to cover for tonight?
No, there's nothing left on from legal counsel side on this. It's, the board would need to vote to close the public hearing.
Right.
Okay. I'll entertain a vote, gentlemen. Oh, excuse me, I'll entertain a motion for a vote.
Where's the agenda? I think you have the agenda.
Yes, I do have the agenda. It's here, hold on, give me a minute.
I don't have a copy of the agenda.
I don't have it either, that's why. Are you
That's
you
a
making motion?
Michelleism.
You wanna make a
Here it is,
motion?
right here.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing on comprehensive permit ZCMP-25-3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it.
And so now, it's not a continuance because the hearing's closed, it's just a scheduling.
Yeah.
And we're on
And
for
so the
September
recom-
17th, correct?
Right, and so what time, I don't know if what time the board, if the board has anything else on there, on your agenda for the 7th, that's the only thing. I'm not in charge of anything that's not a 40B, so I'm not in charge of 40Bs either, but I don't know anything about anything that's not a 40B in Dartmouth.
I think the last email that we got from Michelle said she didn't have anything scheduled for September. And we might have nothing on.
Well, we can always put it on for 5, that way we can always,
Yeah.
handle it. And if there's something else on as well, we'll just
Yeah,
put it on the
so,
agenda.
yeah, so I think if we put it on for 5, if it turns out you have other things on at 5, we can let the applicant know that you might be starting this a little
A
later.
little bit later, we'll give them that courtesy, sure.
But do we expect something like maybe a few days before? on the
Oh,
final?
yes, yes, yes,
Or
yes.
we- Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, just
If
so
I
this-
can, so wait, I'll work with, I'll work with the staff. There might be some language cleanup things to run by the applicant. So ideally, we'd be getting you something, that's a Thursday, right? Ideally, we'd be getting it to something, back to the board by the end of next week, if we can,
Great.
depending on everybody's schedules.
Sufficient time. All right, so to everyone here in the audience, the matter, it's not continued, it's going to be the date in which we will finally review all of the revisions and vote formally on the allowance or disallowance of the petition for comprehensive permit. Okay? We have a bunch of other matters that we have to cover this evening, which
do have
are
a-
approvals of
Administrative.
different administrative minutes and whatnot. Are you gentlemen want to do that today, or, we've already tabled a lot of these.
I know we have, but shouldn't we have Michelle here?
Yeah, I think it would be
Because She
best.
generally keeps track of everything that
Let's
we
do that.
do. and-
So, given that, we'll just table those. They're gonna be a lot of, we almost need to have one session just to deal with all the minutes and approval of minutes and meeting minutes that we've basically conducted over the last several months that we've not gone over. So I don't think we can table it much beyond the next meeting, but we'll keep that in mind. So knowing that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it.